Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Startup Impact Summit. Today, we are super excited to have Zoe and Sam with us to talk about no-code products and also a lot of insights. So without further ado, I would like to pass the stage to Zoe to kickstart the sections. Please give round of applause.
Hi everyone, my name is Zoe, and thanks Felix and Startup Impact Summit for inviting us to be part of this fireside chat. So my name is Zoe Chu, a product builder at NewCo, and I'm also a remote consultant for US and APAC startups in product communication and user-based discovery. I'm really excited to be moderating for today's session, where I'll be spending time with Sam Dickie, who is the lead product manager at ucreate. Sam is also the founder of No Code Tech. He built the platform with zero coding and it got acquired in 2018. It used to be the reality that if you are non-technical, it's impossible for you to build a software product unless you know how to program. Today, anyone can build a software or a technology business without writing a single line of code. And this is why we are so excited about the future of no code. Without further ado, let's welcome guest of the day, Sam, and I will hand this off to you, Sam, so probably can start off with like an introduction about yourself, and then we'll transition to our chat today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Zoe. And great to be here. Yeah, a little bit about myself. As Zoe mentioned, I'm one of the lead product managers at a startup studio based in London, England. I'm also the lead program manager for the Spark micro incubation program, where we take early stage founders and go through a 6-week validation process. And also on the side, at least for the last 7 years, I've spent a lot of time building my own side projects and digital businesses. And for the most part, everything has been built using entirely no code as a non-technical maker myself.
Wow, that's awesome. I know, Sam, you're a product manager and product maker. You built many technology products without writing any code. So tell us a little bit about your story in building and launching some of these projects, and how did you come up with the product idea and how you built it?
Yeah, so I mean, probably a bit of background in terms of where I got first into this space. It was actually back in 2012. Having looked back on that, it seems like such a long time ago. But I was in Glasgow, and I was actually looking to build a product at university, and I had no idea how to build a website whatsoever. And I had a look online, and I think one of the first places that I found was a platform called Weebly, which was still relatively early in its product infancy, and I decided to give it a shot. And that was a kind of visual drag and drop editor, and I was just like instantly blown away. Like, I couldn't believe that I could create a website. I showed my friends, and they're like, "Oh my god, like, you know how to code?" Like, and I was like, "No, I have no idea how to code. I just built this." And that was like a bit of a kind of a pivotal moment, I think, for me, just to understand that you really didn't have to have any knowledge or background experience in either the design necessarily, and better still the development side of things. So from there, we managed to win in a grant from the government, and we built out this platform for a carbon offsetting scheme for businesses in Scotland. And that did relatively well. And then, having moved down to London, I decided to create a 3D printing company with a friend of mine. And from there, we built a website, and that was an e-commerce platform we had built. And again, we just used the same tools, but it almost forced me and my co-founder at the time, both being non-technical, to then start hacking together a series of platforms and tools to try and make this work for us. And that was a really exciting part. It's just really being quite creative and having to find other means to build the platform without code. And then from there, that business was acquired, and then I moved on to ultimately building the no-code platform, which you mentioned before, Zoe. And that's just an accumulation of having to find all those tools online. And then I thought, well, hold on, like, surely other people like me, which there is billions, would love to have an aggregated list of all those no-code tools. So that's what ultimately led me to curate all those resources and then put them online so other people could see that there's so many opportunities out there to build products with from a non-technical background. So that's, yeah, a little bit of background how I got into that space.
Wow, that's awesome. And I wish I know no code. You know, like before I learned like HTML to code a basic website, and then having the knowledge, you know, using all these no code tools, it just accelerate the building part, the launching part. Yeah, that's fantastic. And now I'm getting curious. Like, let's switch gear a little bit and talk about the industry trends. Like, if you look at today no code landscape, we have a lot of no-code technologies for building website, mobile app, database by just drag and drop without any programming languages. And so what are the most interesting trends have you observed over the past 3 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, funnily enough, the last few, when was it, about 2 days ago, I read a really good article by Forbes, and it really framed how fast this kind of no code scene has really has come. And the example they gave, which really stood out to me, was about, I think it was about even five to 7 years ago, this founder was bringing out a new platform. It was for car or vehicle servicing, and it was going to be a mobile app. And it was a really simple platform in today's standards, but at that time, even just like 7 years ago, it took 12 engineers and over a year to build. And I was kind of trying to deconstruct the scope of that product. And really, and again, this is just my opinion, you could probably recreate that product nowadays, either by yourself or with another co-founder, and probably bring that to market in a case of like a matter of weeks, and for an absolute fraction of that cost of 12 engineers in a year. So I think for me, the massive trend has been able to get a product from its, I suppose, a high level idea to an MVP in like a fraction of the time. So like the speed and then ultimately the cost and the resources required have all been completely slashed, which is incredible. And I think it's moving, the accelerated rate that is going at, even in the last, like you say, 2 to 3 years, has just been absolutely outstanding. I think other trends that I've seen has been just the community itself, like the no-code community. When I created nocode.tech, and that was, probably about 4 years ago, and there really wasn't much, like that term no code wasn't really being used as much online. No one was really referring to them as a no code maker, no code developer. And I think just even in the last 2 years or year, like now that as you know, Zoe, like on Twitter and indie hackers and Reddit, like that term is huge now. There's loads of makers, loads of businesses now kind of moving across into really taking the no-code industry quite seriously now, because you've seen some great products getting built from it. So that's been a massive trend that I've noticed, and it's been great because I felt for quite some time that you're kind of alone and you don't realize that there's actually so many other people there who are just as passionate and want to build products but don't necessarily have the technical know-how. So that's definitely one. And I think just in general, the creativity, and just seeing like, people every single day in the circles and networks that I've got online, usually through, Twitter and Reddit, of people just sharing fantastic products that unless they had mentioned to you, you'd be none the wiser that it was built using zero code at all. And it's massively inspiring. because you see someone else build that and you realize how they built it. And the best thing about the community is they share everything. They share videos, they share content, they share their tech stack, and it allows everyone else to be able to recreate that or make a slight improvement upon it or a tweak on it. So yeah, that's some big trends that I've seen, definitely. And I think actually, and lastly, just on that point, I think another trend is like the unbundling of larger products and services. So you see like the space where you had the Microsoft Office suite, and now, you know, bigger companies, you know, like, smaller companies like Notion, like Airtable, like Coda, they're like unbundling elements of the Microsoft Word suite, and then creating very hyper niche products, but then really aimed at certainly non-technical makers that allow them to use components of that technology to build products on top of. So that's been really exciting.
Yeah, I think those are great points. Supporting NewCo community across Twitter, product hunts, and also some community platform like NewCo Tech, where people are jumping onto the forums and start to share resources and share know-how and knowledge, and to help other makers to get started in building NewCo products. And I also agree with the points on, you know, there are a lot of new technologies and startups that focusing on how to help others to build, you know, products by giving them the technology that they can use to, you know, build and launch product in a matter of day without having to learn how to code. And it's actually exciting, you know, with all these tools and community being available in the market. It's just, you know, empower, you know, aspiring entrepreneurs to get started in building something.
That's right. I mean, I think it's also worth pointing out that, you know, when you and me are talking about this, that this is not just reserved for people that want to build their own businesses. This is also perfect for people that work within organizations that don't necessarily want to have to maybe use resources. Like, for example, you know, years ago, you'd have to, if you're a marketing team, you'd have to heavily rely upon usually a front-end designer, potentially a back-end, you know, developer. And if you wanted to, you know, quickly spin up a landing page, and you just don't have to do that anymore. So like, you're empowering teams within your organization to be able to, I suppose, ideate, validate, and then actually build these products themselves without having to bring in loads more people into those teams. And then building internal tools. You know, like we do that at the company I work at. Like, we're a small-ish company compared to others. We don't want to have to pay for enterprise software tools. They're usually not specific enough for us and our needs, so we just build them ourselves. You know, like we use, like, we hacked together like a bit of Airtable, some Notion, Slack, Trello. We bring them all together, and now we've built our own custom, you know, resourcing tool, our custom scheduling tool. So that's been a really exciting, particularly in the last maybe 2 years, being able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, no-code use cases for the marketing team, where you can build landing pages and do a lot of A/B testing without having to go through the technical side of setting up the backend, or, you know, some HTML framework or design, you know, framework to be able to build something quickly. And you can do a lot more tests and, you know, validate some, you know, marketing hypothesis, you know, at a faster rate without having to, you know, go through all this technical stuff. Yeah, that's great points on that.
Yeah, and I mean, you also means you don't have to, you've got less disposable like artifacts or design or assets. So like previously, you know, a couple of years ago, we would spend a lot of time using like Balsamiq, which is, you know, like a wireframing tool. Like, if I can build that if I can build a high fidelity design in the same time it takes me to do a low fidelity, well, I'm probably going to go for the high fidelity. So it means we have to, like, it's less waste in the process, which means higher efficiency. So, you know, instead of having to use multiple tools, I can either jump straight into Figma or I can jump straight into Webflow and build it and launch it instead of having to go through a bit of a longer process.
Yeah, and the result is functional, and people can, users can use it and experience the digital usability without having to, see it as a design and then, imagine how this will work. And so that's the space. So my next question to you is, why are you most excited about the no-code space? Because personally, I'm excited about the possibilities of artificial intelligence and automation in a no-code solution. So how can non-coders use AI, use cases and apply in their products and, app without having to learn how to code?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of there's some fantastic products getting built out there that are allowing you to tap into these AI libraries or engines. So you don't have to do all the work yourself. You have to have a team of very talented but yet extremely expensive artificial intelligence developers. So there's some fantastic products out there that you can really tap into and use their software in your existing product with, they've, instead of having to worry about connecting all the APIs, now you've got, great tools like Zapier, but for the majority of these open source AI tools, they have their own integrations. So now we're kind of moving away. Well, APIs are always going to be there, but I suppose that integrations are essentially APIs, but they're all created for you. It's a simple case of usually putting in a API key, which is just literally a copy and paste job, and it does all the work for you. Again, saving so much time and not having to know the complex structure of creating these endpoints. So I think, yeah, that's definitely one. I mean, the most important one for me, and I'm sure, a lot of people listening to it have heard this 100 times before, but it goes without saying that it's empowering the 99% of people that don't know how to code. That's the most exciting opportunity out of this. It's bringing in, I suppose, like a whole different type of person into the tech ecosystem that otherwise, would have been an outsider. And I think for me, that was the best part. I was completely non-technical, didn't study this at university by any means. And then out of nowhere, these tools came and it almost brought me into that industry. And for a long time, I felt like an outsider that was kind of just looking in. But now that's definitely one of the most exciting things.
Yeah, agreed. Those are great points. And based on your industry experience, working with clients, founders, and companies, what are the most common criticism or misconceptions about no-code?
Yeah, that's a good one. There's a lot. And I think, there's still a lot to be done to try and convince people of these ones. I think for me, and I'd be interested to hear yours as well, Zoe, but like mine, the number one has got to be the scalability. This is the when I reach out to our portfolio of founders or people that I work with, scalability is always seen as, right, well, if I'm building it on top of this and I'm hacking together it this way, what happens if I get like 1 million users? Can the infrastructure that I'm building on top of handle that? And I think, well, the first thing that springs to mind when someone says that is, that's a great problem to have. If you're going to get 1 million users, unbelievable, right? But it's almost like we deal with that when it comes. And I think jumping to try and build something, obviously you need to build with scalability in the back of your mind, but trying to marginalize that risk too early on, you could be spending months or years building infrastructure to cater for the millions, but maybe you're at only this point, you're dealing with maybe the hundreds, maybe the thousands or tens of thousands. So you can slowly implement new technology when that becomes a problem. But I think getting something out to market as fast as possible, is the best strategy. And I think dealing with those problems as and when they come is a better approach. And I think a lot of the technology that we're now starting to see, a lot of the new platforms that we're using, they are all built to handle huge amounts of traffic. They're built on your AWS, they're built on your Heroku's. They're built to handle that. So as long as your process is refined and tested, it shouldn't be an issue. And then I think second to that, this is one for me personally, is design. I think is one where like you see these beautiful products, but they're very well funded. They've got large teams, and you as a maker are trying to build something that looks as good as those products. And I think sometimes you're constrained by the design of the tools that you're using. And I think trying to make them look really, really good can be quite hard. And I think a lot of people tend to think when they build these products with no code, that they are going to have to give away the design element. And I don't think that's the case. I think there's some great products, like Webflow, that allow you to create stunning looking websites. So I think that's a misconception, perhaps. And I think, that's probably the main ones for me.
Yeah, I agree with scalability, and we can always deal with scalability later on, because for most people, the starting point is the hardest, which is to put together the tools to build a functional product and take it to MVP. And only once it reached 10,000 or a million users, then probably you need to start expanding the MVP with some features. Then probably it's the right time to look for developers or engineering teams to put things together, like to make it more sustainable for a larger product with multiple functionalities and features. And I do like your point on the limitation on design. So for example, sometimes like you're using no-code to build something like high interactions. Like for example, you want to have a product with AR filter, then probably that's a bit hard to do it with no-code. But initially you can still like hack the design together to like present the vision of the app or the product for your initial users and see if they like it, and then you take it from there. Yeah,
exactly.
And also, what do you think is missing from the no-code industry? Like, how can we as people who are working in the industry improve it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's already an incredible community of people sharing what they do day to day, but I think it's just continuing that. So it's not necessarily it's not being done, but I just think we should continue this amazing initiative, as everything that we're building is either just trying to share some content around like how we built it. It could be around videos, it could be podcasts, it could just be an article. And really providing that breakdown for other people, what tech stack did you use, how they all interconnected, how you approached that problem, what tools that you use in particular and why. And I think that really helps other people and invites them in, and it gets them to collaborate. It improves engagement across the community. So I think it's just really keeping that up. I think it's like one of the best communities I've seen online. Certainly a very friendly community compared to some of the others that I've seen in the Hacker News space. Like everyone's a lot nicer. Everyone's really helping each other, giving really good feedback. So I think it's just building on top of that. And then another thing that I only just noticed recently, but I thought was fantastic, was that, Webflow were mentioning that they were starting to do like a kids no-code bootcamp. And I think that's amazing. Like I wish I had that when I was younger, some sort of no-code bootcamp that young children or teenagers can start to understand the possibilities of building products, and they don't necessarily have to code. It could be a gateway to them learning how to build it first of all in no code, and then eventually they might become developers. You never know, but like it's just showing people the possibility at an early age. Because I only got involved in this about 7 years ago, but like you can imagine, You know, I'm 33 now, but if I knew when I was like 14, 15 how to do this, like I probably wouldn't have even gone to university. I probably would have just kept building, you know, like, so I think if we did this much earlier on, and that whole next generation of you know, entrepreneurs, digital makers, like that would be fantastic. And then I suppose maybe, and this is probably quite a controversial one, but I think certainly we're going through a bit of the kind of, it's a very busy time with a lot of products coming out. Like you look in Product Hunt and there's like no code products coming out like daily. When I started building no code, I was struggling to get that list together. There was maybe like per category, I might have had 3 or 4 tools. I would not be able to keep up right now. There's so many coming in. So, which is a really good point. But I think what typically happens in these kind of like tech bubbles is there's consolidation starts to happen. So just now there's a lot of products out there, you know, and trying to get product market fit, trying to find out who their actual target market is. And eventually you will start to probably see a bit of consolidation where businesses either acquire other businesses and other ones shut down, and the kind of cream of the crop start to rise to the top. And I think for me, it would be, I don't know, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, like Zoe, but would you rather have like loads of tools, but it's quite confusing not knowing what to use, or would you prefer to rather have only have less tools, but it's a lot more straightforward what everyone does, and you have a bit more of an organized tech stack? And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like this question. I'm looking at this at 2 angles. So there are platforms that are building like the horizontal, you know, functions for building, you know, tools for, you know, like you can do no code using this platform. You can build apps and you can build web apps. You can build database, which is more like a horizontal, you know, market approach in building that platform for users to, you know, build on top of whatever no code tools they are developing. And I'm also looking at the possibility of like you know, like vertical, more vertical, yeah, which is like you can have like a few tools, and then which is very specific to like building you know, specific products, like for example building mobile app, and then you have like vertical tools that, you know, that's focused on, you know, building mobile apps products. So I would say that you know, for me, I would think in terms of the potentials for, you know, all these opportunities, you know, in the horizontal products and also the vertical products in the no code space, because I think that will be very exciting, you know, yeah, for us to, you know, explore all the possibilities in, you know, all these different tools. Yeah, and I do want to summarize your points early on, which is the content community and the social community, and also a way for us to, like, you know, browse all these no-code tools like in a directory on your list, and then we can like keep track, you know, what is new, what is, you know, what are the latest tools that I need to check out. And so yeah, pretty excited, you know, about the space and how we can improve it.
Yeah, the a great product that I signed up to the other day. Well, it's a newsletter, but I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was No Code List, and it's a really great newsletter. It basically summarizes every single week all the different no code products that have either launched, new improvements that have come out, podcasts, videos, content, and it's like just a weekly digest. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It means, you know, instead of me spending hours trying to find it out myself, it just comes straight towards me. I can see all the updates of all the tools that I'm using. So that's been really helpful. And then that no code list, I think if you just Google it, I saw them a couple of weeks ago. Great product. And that certainly is doing a lot to improve what I mentioned in the last bit there, was with so many different tech stacks and what they do. Well, that product essentially tells you, if you want to build a marketplace, here's 3 different tech stacks you can use. You know, if you want to build a services business, here's 4 tech stacks you can use and why. But that's certainly helping there.
Yeah, I think those are super supportive community out there, who are sharing resources and, all this knowledge with the makers community. And so that I think everyone can, leverage on these resources whenever they want to get started in the local space. And let's touch a bit on the entrepreneurship topic in the no-code space. Personally, I've been like observing the startup space and seeing lots of new businesses being built using no-code. Some of the examples are like productized services and technology marketplaces where they set up a marketplace to hire no-code experts. And also some of these like mobile app, they monetize their no-code mobile app by, building a subscription services in the mobile app. And so with the rise of no-code, like how can non-technical founders get started in entrepreneurship and build a startup using this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's definitely worth pointing out that once you get an understanding of a few tools and you know how to use them and you actually create something yourself, it really opens your mind to the possibilities. I think as an outsider looking into this whole new space of no code, it can seem quite daunting. There's a lot of different tools. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of people talking about different things. But what I think the best place to get involved is just, if you've got a problem that you're looking to try and solve and to bring a product out, is to just build it yourself and use all these tools, read the content, watch the videos, take your time. There's no massive rush, and just experiment. Like, I made so many mistakes throughout this whole process, but using the wrong tools, linking them up incorrectly, not realizing the website wasn't published. I mean, you name it. Like, I've made every mistake there probably is. But it's like compounding learning. Every time you're doing it, you're always learning more and more and more. And over time, you really start to understand what the possibilities are. And then once you do understand it, it's really, really empowering. I mean, great tools, and I'm sure most people know these ones that I'm mentioning, but in case you don't, like, there is, MakerPad by Ben Tossell. He's done a fantastic job. And really, that platform gives you so much knowledge around, tutorials, videos, how-to guides, workshops. That's a fantastic place to get started. And then, NoCode.tech, the one that I had built, but later sold. Again, really good place to see a list of all the different tools you might need. It's a great thing to bookmark and just kind of dip into when you're looking for a particular tool in a specific category. And I think just observing how other people are building using no code. A lot of people are doing really good how-to videos on YouTube. And I usually just sit with one of those videos up there on one screen, and then the other screen, I'm trying to follow along and build them myself. So I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I love it. Those are fantastic, platforms, and also, educational, resources that anyone can use to get started. And I'm just curious, like you mentioned, like you made some mistakes when you started using no-code tools. Probably like you chose the wrong tools or technologies. I'll be interested to know, like, what are some of the mistakes in terms of building the minimal viable products perspective? For example, testing hypotheses, and what are some of the mistakes have you made? Because personally, the first mistake that I made back in, a couple of years ago when I started to learn how to build something to validate our idea is that I built a functional product, but the features had nothing to do with validating the hypothesis. So this could happen, right? Because we have, like, with the abundance of no-code technologies out there, we can easily put things together and make it functional. But the problem is, is your MVP solving the right problem? Like, is your MVP testing the right hypothesis? And how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, very, very good question. Made that mistake as well, multiple times. I think the glamorous part of what we're talking about today is building the product. That's the really fun part, right? But the part that most people kind of skip or forget is the validation part up front, right? And, you know, for me, I just wanted to build all the time and just hope that someone would use it. And that's like, it's a very risky approach. You spend a lot of your own time, or wasted time. I think you're spending quite a bit of money doing that. I think it's almost taking a step back, right? Before we even start to select our tech stack, before we even consider what the end solution is, I would always try now to, like, what is the problem? Like, what is the exact problem I'm trying to solve, right? Once I've defined that, then it's thinking, what type of people also encounter that same problem, right? So it's trying to find that particular user type. Now, in order to find them, you need to understand who they are. So how do we find out who they are? Then what I would do is create, you know, a persona, right? Like, where's my target market and what sort of people are these? So I would do a bit of, you know, persona work to understand the makeup of that person, where they hang about online, what sort of the pains they might have, and then really start to try and target those people. So do a bit of problem discovery or customer development, as we call it. And it's really creating, maybe it could be a survey, an online survey. It could be an interview that you might do. It could even just be a landing page, you know, that you build, you know, a quick landing page on Card, on Weebly, Wix, Squarespace, Webflow, all those tools. Knock a quick landing page up, define usually at the beginning a broader value proposition, and then start to drive people towards it, get their email addresses, and then follow up with these people. Really start to understand, okay, do you have this problem? If yes, great. How many times do you encounter this problem? Okay, so it's daily, fantastic. Okay, so then now it is on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a problem do you think this is? Is it a massive problem, 10, or is it, I don't really care, is it a 1? So now I'm starting to find out, like, so then why is it a problem to you in particular? What do you envisage the solution being? And it's really trying to discover that problem. Once you get to understand who your audience is, the frequency, how painful a point it might be, so trying to work out, would they be willing to pay for something like this? And then the channels that you can target these people, and a value proposition that's resonating with your audience. Then you can start the fun part and start building, you know, a landing page, building the product, and just continuing this cycle of learning from your target audience, and building, I suppose, an audience early as well is something that I'm trying to get a lot better at. Instead of building it in stealth mode, you know, like keeping it quiet and don't let anyone know what you're doing, like build publicly. Like, if you leverage your social networks, like tell people what you're building, share screenshots, create polls, create surveys, invite people in, create a newsletter, update people with your progress. Like, and then when you do launch, you've now got an engaged audience of maybe, I mean, anything's better than nothing. So like, you got like 50 people, great, 100, 1,000, fantastic, but at least have like an early audience that you can use to validate your assumptions, but then also maybe a few of them might become customers when you launch.
Yeah, I liked how you integrate the product management, you know, thought process when we are building a product or startup MVPs, because it's really important to make sure that the product that you're building is solving the user needs. And it's actually, when you build it, you want to validate the hypothesis where once user use it, and it's a proof that they are going to find it valuable, they'll continue using it, and they will eventually like pay for it. I think those are super great points, and you're able to like put it into the thought process, you know, in terms of product management, user research, user interview, and eventually only come to the fun part where we are, you know, building the products, you know, doing all this no-code stuff and design stuff. And then it's also important to build in parallel, you know, build the audience, build the email list, do some pre-launch effort before you even release the MVPs to the public. I think those are fantastic, you know, thought process. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've only really started to put this into practice probably in the last couple of years. You know, in product management, you start to learn all these techniques that you don't understand if you're just a maker online and it's a part-time, you know, kind of endeavor. So I think trying to marry the two together certainly helped me massively. So yeah, and the thing is, the beauty of it, you know, what I'm talking about before, that could be like, you know, 2, maybe 3 weeks, depending on how much time up front. But then when you do get to the build process, now you know exactly what to build, opposed to before you're kind of guessing, like maybe they want that, maybe they want this. If you do that homework and research before it, you're a bit more like laser focused on what you have to build, and it's a much more efficient process. And then you're, I'd say, more likely to make a product that people actually like.
Yeah, and it takes a lot less effort in iterating the MVP, because you have spoken to all the users and you validated some, you know, user needs and user problems, so that when you're building and designing the features and functionality in your product, it's going to be like at least 80% or 90% is you're building something that user want to use. I think that's
definitely. And I think it's also worth pointing out, and I was thinking about this yesterday, that, you know, we talk about the no-code movement, but we kind of, no one really mentions like the progression that's happened in the design space. You know, so you talk about no-code allowing non-technical people to work on elements of what developers did previously. But what it also allows us to do is work on elements of design, which you previously needed a designer to do. You know, there's loads of products out there that I've noticed recently that have allowed me to do developer work and design work. And you become that kind of like full stack maker, full stack non-technical maker, really. So, you know, like when Figma came out, that really replaced, a lot of skilled people that, you know, did Photoshop. Now, more people can get involved in the prototyping, which you previously couldn't do. And then creating like design assets. You know, if you wanted to do a bit of marketing for your own side project or business, you'd probably need to get a designer, and you need maybe a bit of a marketing background. Now you've got like Canva that exists, and that's like got all the assets that you need, already pre-laid out. All the dimensions are all defined for you. You search Twitter, it gives you the Twitter banner, and then all you need to do is change the colors and a bit of copy, and you download it, and that's it. So like, it's the barriers to entry have been massively reduced now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I like the term that you used, full stack product maker, because new product is more than just building the product, because eventually you want to build it as a sustainable business, then you will need to have the business mindset in understanding the market and user needs. And then you need to have the product management mindset, which is understanding, you know, doing all the user research to find out insights and validate the right hypothesis. And then you need to have the sort of like developer insight, which is to know how to, manage your user management, the database, you know, all the sign-off flows and things like that. And then you need to have the design mindset, which is create, great UI and UX for your user to use it so that they love it. And then you need to have a marketing mindset, which is to write great copy and, launch products and get tractions for a product that you're building. And so I would say in the beginning, as a maker, we can try to do everything ourselves. But once we get to a point where it has some indicator of success, then probably we can take it further by collaborating with others, or hiring or outsourcing, to other, people to work together on this. Yeah, I had a great time with you, Sam. Do you have any last words that you want to share in terms of no-code, or a piece of advice you want to give people when they're getting started?
Yeah, I mean, I think advice-wise is it's never too late to start. I mean, it sounds really simple, but I was in a completely different career just 5 years ago, doing environmental science and town planning, and I never thought that I'd be involved in this. And I was, in my late 20s, almost early 30s, and I did a complete career change overnight. Best decision I've ever made. But I think it's just always worth pointing out, it doesn't matter, what age you are, you can completely get involved in this very easily nowadays, which is absolutely fantastic. And then and just think of everything as an experiment would be my other bit of advice. Like, just have fun, enjoy the process, like a great place to start is just create your own personal website. Like, that's a good place to begin, because it's only going to provide value for you. You've not got any expectations. You have to get loads of users and you have to create a business. So creating your own website, you start to get used to a lot of the tools that you might need. And then really from there, you can start to just slowly and gradually compound your learning by using all the other tools that are available. But yeah, I mean, if anyone has any questions or any follow-ups, obviously they can reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, and yeah, that's pretty much everything. Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Sam, for this fantastic insights that you share on the NewCo space, and also thanks, Felix, for inviting us. In the Startup Impact Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It's all really fruitful. I do agree with a lot of the conversations, and I can't wait to jump in. Thank you so much for putting up these fruitful sections, and I believe the audience would love to stay in touch with you. So feel free to connect your Twitter, LinkedIn, and follow all your products online. I'm sure people can find your footprint over Google and Medium, Product Hunts, etc. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. And thanks very much, Zoe. I had great fun.
Oh, me too. I'll be following you on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well. And thanks, Felix. You're a maker as well. You're a product builder as well. You build lots of NewCo stuff.